Audio presents The Vacationers by Emma Straub. Read by Kristen Sieh. It is not so much a matter of traveling as of getting away. Which of us has not some pain to dull, or some yoke to cast off? George Sand, Winter in Mallorca. I'll be the desert island where you can be free. I'll be the vulture you can catch and eat. The Magnetic Fields, Desert Island. Day 1. Leaving always came as a surprise, no matter how long the dates had been looming on the calendar. Jim had packed his suitcase the night before, but now, moments before their scheduled departure, he was wavering. Had he packed enough books? He walked back and forth in front of the bookshelf in his office, pulling novels out by their spines and then sliding them back into place. Had he packed his running shoes? Had he packed his shaving cream? Elsewhere in the house, Jim could hear his wife and their daughter in similar last-minute throes of panic, running up and down the stairs with one last item that had been forgotten in a heap by the door. There were things that Jim would have taken out of his bags if it had been possible. The last year of his life. And the 5 before that when it came to his knees. The way Franny looked at him across the dinner table at night. The feeling of himself inside a new mouth for the first time in 3 decades. And how much he wanted to stay there. The emptiness waiting on the other side of the return flight. The blank days he would have to fill and fill and fill. Jim sat down at his desk and waited for someone to tell him that he was needed elsewhere. Sylvia waited in front of the house, staring down 75th Street toward Central Park. Both of her parents were the type that believed that a taxi would always present itself at just the right moment, especially on summer weekends when traffic in the city was lightest. Sylvia thought that was horse shit. The only thing worse than spending 2 of her last 6 weeks before leaving for college on vacation with her parents would be missing the flight and having to spend one of those final nights sleeping upright in an airport lounge, a stained seat cushion as her only comfort. She would get the taxi herself. It wasn't as if she wanted to spend the whole summer in Manhattan, which turned into a melting concrete armpit. The idea of Mallorca was appealing in theory. It was an island, which promised little waves and nice breezes, and she could practice her Spanish, which she had done well in during high school. Everyone, literally everyone, from her graduating class was doing nothing all summer long. Just taking turns hosting parties when their parents went to Wainscott or Woodstock or somewhere else with wood-shingled houses that looked distressed on purpose. Sylvia had looked at their faces enough for the last 18 years and couldn't wait to get the hell out. Sure, yes, there were 4 other kids from her class going to Brown, but she never had to speak to them again if she didn't want to, and that was the plan. Find new friends. Make a new life. Finally be somewhere where the name Sylvia Post came without the ghosts of the girl she'd been at 16, at 12, at 5, where she was detached from her parents and her brother, and she could just be, like an astronaut floating in space, unencumbered by gravity. Come to think of it, Sylvia wished that they were spending the whole summer abroad. This way she would still have to suffer through August at home, when the parties were sure to reach their weepy and desperate apex. Sylvia did not plan to weep. A taxi with its light on rounded the corner and came slowly toward her, bouncing its way over the potholes. Sylvia stuck one arm in the air and dialed her home phone number with her other hand. It rang and was ringing still when the taxi came to a halt. Her parents were inside doing God knows what. Sylvia opened the door to the taxi and leaned into the back seat. "It'll just be a minute," she said. "Sorry, my parents are on their way out." She paused. "They're the worst." This had not always been true, but it was now, and she wasn't shy about saying so. The taxi driver nodded and clicked the meter on, clearly happy to sit there all day if need be. The cab would have been blocking traffic, but there was no traffic to block. Sylvia was the only person in the city who seemed to be in a hurry. She hit redial, and this time her father answered after the first ring. "Let's go," she said, without waiting for him to speak. "Car's here." "Your mother's taking her time," Jim said. "We'll be out in 5. Sylvia clicked the phone off and scooched her way across the back seat of the taxi. "They're on their way," she said. Sylvia leaned back and closed her eyes, feeling some of her hair catch on a...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?